Hey y'all, Dennis here, Muddy Water Search and Recovery, and this is our mini-series episode 2 on the Randy Leach case. And in this episode, I will be discussing several of the theories that are out there on this case. If you have a theory that is not mentioned on this episode, please reach out to me, share that theory, let me know. My contact information again will be down in the video description. Call me, text me, email me, comment, whatever is best for you. But I would love to hear those theories. I am going to cover several of them on this episode. The first theory I want to kind of cover would be that Randy did get in the vehicle and try to drive himself home, and along the way may have had an accident. Now, those that are familiar with the area, even those of you who use Google Earth, you know these are a lot of back roads. There's a lot of corners, there's creek beds, there's ponds near the road, there's points where the Kansas River is actually accessible. So there is a lot of areas where this possibility may have happened. And at this point, me personally, I still cannot rule out this theory that he did try to drive himself home and had an unfortunate accident. I can't rule it out. I would say it's lower on my list of theories of what may have happened, but at the end of the day, this still cannot be ruled out. Now, I know Megan and I were able to look at a lot of areas that were small creeks, had the bridges going over those, and we were able to clear 12 or 13 areas like that. There's still some others in the area that we will be looking at. But while it's possible, I don't know if it's probable. But, you know, we're still looking into that. I know Adventures with Purpose searched Stranger Creek. Betty and Larry in Alberta let us know that they had magnetometers out and searched Stranger Creek. Between the magnetometers and the sonar on Stranger from the bridge there at 32, or I guess it'd be where it went over Golden Road right there by the train bridge, down to the Kansas River. The magnetometer did not make a hit there, and sonar did not pick up anything. Plus, when you go back and you look at the weather records for that time, it was very dry. Any vehicle that would have went in would have stuck in the mud right there and would have been very visible from the road. I know I've seen where Harold had been there and checked. Other people went by there and looked. And just driving over, you know, you're going to be able to look down there. The Cedar Creek is a little bit different story. If he would be found in Cedar Creek, I don't believe he would have got there by accident. I know Adventures with Purpose went out and they went downstream from the boat ramp. We went out and went upstream from the boat ramp. And I still feel that whole area still needs to be looked at, and we will be going back out there. But that is one creek that if he is in that area, I don't feel would be an accident. That would be foul play, in my opinion. There was a gentleman come up recently from Florida, I believe it was. He brought up a very high-tech drone and flew it over a lot of areas. His footage, his pictures was just incredible. I believe this guy done a very incredible job. There were some questions on if a body of water can be 100% cleared by a drone. That all depends. Water clarity being number one, the depth, if you're able to see the bottom. The footage that was shown on Facebook, I can tell you, is not the same level of footage that he had when he seen this. Facebook is not set up to handle that high-tech footage, I guess, to lack of better words. So it does lower the resolution for it to fit on Facebook. So he had higher resolution at the video he was looking at. Some objects, yes, he was able to clear. Some of these, it was, even on the videos on Facebook, it was obvious that it was a tree, branch, stuff like that. Or there was another thing on the Kansas River. You could tell it was not a vehicle through that video. But there is some, it does have some limits to the drone, and I'm sure he would agree. Angle, water clarity, the depth, the shadows coming across the top of the water. So I believe he would agree that, yeah, it's not going to be 100% cleared from drone footage, but it helps 100% give you an idea of what may be there. I did see a few areas from these videos that I feel shows that a sonar search does need to be done, and we're putting those areas on our list, and we'll be talking with landowners trying to get permission to do just that. But I think he done just an outstanding job with his drone. If you see this video, thank you very much for putting in your time and effort, your money to drive up here to do this, to try to help a family that you don't even know. That in itself speaks volumes about you, but thank you very much for what you've done with that. And I've already spoken in other videos about the searches that took place right after Randy disappeared. The Highway Patrol brought in their airplanes. Kansas Game and Fish brought their boats in on the Kansas River. And with the boats, they were looking for not just a vehicle and not just Randy, but anywhere where a vehicle may have come into the water, be it tracks, be it, bushes pushed over, small trees broken, etc. And they searched that for several days. Plus, there were several foot searches, not just law enforcement, but family, friends, volunteers going out and looking for him. So there were several searches that took place initially. And off and on, there's been searches through family, friends, and volunteers. I want to say pretty much ever since. There's been stretches, I'm sure, where somebody wasn't out searching, but it hasn't just been neglected. So they've had boats, sonars, airplanes, cadaver dogs, magnetometers, ground searches. I mean, there has been a lot of searches that have transpired. There are some areas that have been searched that have been called cleared that, as I mentioned before, I'm not comfortable with those areas being cleared. I think they needed to be fully searched in that area instead of just little bits of it. So those areas we will be trying to get into fully 100%. Check those out, hopefully either clear them or find answers there. But I'm not comfortable calling an area cleared unless we know 100% everything there has been searched and it's cleared. So we will be going to some of those areas as well. Another theory is there was a report that Randy's body was burned in the woods on the old Irwin property where the party took place. And investigators did drive to the location, but they found no evidence of the vehicle or any evidence of a body. And I found reports where the woods there had also been searched the day before with no results. So that area had been searched the day before this report come in. They went back out, and it's hard to say on this. I'm not going to rule this out by any means, but that area was searched, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe, and Megan, you were there, I believe they said that Harold and some of the others were able to search the property where the party took place a day or two after Randy disappeared. And a lot of the people that was at the party was there, and they actually walked through the woods and everything. So and Harold's going to look at it with the fine-tooth comb. This is his son that is missing. So this theory is way down on my list. And again, I'm not going to rule anything out until we could say 100% this is ruled out. But this one is way down on my list as well. And also, Randy had no history of disappearing like this. In fact, Randy wasn't even late for his curfews. He was always on time for his curfew. So this is just completely out of character for Randy. Another theory, and this one goes along with the satanic activity. This one, there are a lot of different theories, a lot of different angles into this, and we're only going to get into a couple of those right now. And one of the biggest questions when the satanic activity come up for me is, did they actually practice this? Was this used as a scare tactic, to cover up maybe drugs, etc.? Or was this just a flat out rumor? I have had some people that are local to the area let me know that Satanism was actually practiced there by many people. This one person in particular, they actually saw the Bibles. They held one of the satanic Bibles and actually got chewed out pretty good for holding that. So according to several people, Satanism was actually practiced in the area by several people, including a lot of names that come up in this case. Now, according to some people local in the area, it was mentioned, but it was more of the scare tactic to cover drug running. Then there's others from the area who said, no, that was all just rumors, it was false, there was none of that around here. So depending on who you're listening to is going to depend on what story you're getting with the satanic activity. My opinion, from what we have been finding on this, I do believe it was being practiced in the area. I'm not going to say that it was widespread, and I'm not going to go dropping names on who may or may not have been involved in that. I believe there's been a lot of names dropped through the years that are likely innocent in all of this, but they have had their names dragged through the mud and have basically fought all their lives with people saying they're guilty when they might not be. So I'm not going to name drop on who I think may or may not have been involved in the satanic activity. I also believe it was used as a scare tactic and cover for drug running in the area. I know that was actually a very big deal at that time drug running in the area. And again, I'm not going to go into the names who may or may not have been involved with that. But some of the names that you see thrown out there, I will say I do believe were involved in that. Not all of them, but some of them. There's rumors that, or theories that Randy was actually paraded around the bonfire that night after he had been drugged up, and they openly mocked him and said, you know, we're going to sacrifice Randy tonight. Again, I wasn't there, obviously, so I cannot rule any of this out yet. But again, that one is way down on my list. That would be very widespread. You not only have adults and teenagers out here, you've got kids in the house as well. Many of you are parents. I know my kids cannot keep their mouths shut. So if, my opinion, if they're parading Randy around out here saying they're going to kill him and sacrifice him that night, these kids are going to know that, and they're going to talk. I mean, kids talk. So this one is, again, way down on my list. Now come the caves in with the satanic activity. Reports that law enforcement from another jurisdiction come out and search the caves. One officer's got pictures of paintings, drawings on the wall inside the cave of satanic symbols. There was a burn pit in the cave. There's a cave that's got a body of water inside of it. Leavenworth come out, run them out, threatened to arrest them since it was not their jurisdiction if they did not leave. So they essentially run them off. Then Leavenworth Sheriff's Department ordered that entrance to the cave to be destroyed. You know, there are actual reports of this. There's actually reports that's been leaked online that are like police reports that show that that did take place. But at the same time, I'm not going to say 100% that they did hold their rituals there. There was a guy that said that he was basically kidnapped, taken to the cave. He saw a body hanging in there. And that whole works. That's where the investigation into the caves originated. When law enforcement, Leavenworth claims they went in and searched it. They did not find anybody. They say they did not even find any symbols or anything on the walls. The other jurisdiction, they had photographs showing symbols on the walls. So now you look at this, you know, is Leavenworth lying, or is this other jurisdiction fabricating evidence? I mean, so being none of us are law enforcement, we don't have the complete answers to that. We will never have those answers, most likely. So none of it can be ruled out, in my opinion. I do believe there was Satanism being practiced in the area, but I don't know to what extent at this moment. Then, as I mentioned in the previous video, you know, there was theories that Harold was actually involved in Randy's disappearance. And Harold passed a polygraph. When Randy went missing and everybody was out looking for him, the search dogs were actually, for lack of a better word, based off of the Leach property. All the search dogs were out there. If there was a body on that property, those dogs would have found it. Then questions come up about the pond on the Leach's property. They drained it down the road to do repairs to the dam on it. that water got low enough that you could tell there was no vehicle in that pond. Harold spent his life trying to find Randy, hiring private investigators, out on the ground himself looking, never gave up, devoted his life to finding Randy. These are not characteristic signs of somebody who is guilty or somebody who was involved in a disappearance. He 100% cooperated with law enforcement when, in all honesty, when they would let him. And the attitude the family got from law enforcement, I don't care if they called every single day asking if there's anything new. Law enforcement, to get frustrated, to get rude to them, to speak to them the way they did, to hang up on them, was just flat out ridiculous. That is their son. They want answers, period. And the one theory I will 100% rule out, in my opinion, is the fact that Harold was involved. I do not believe in any way whatsoever that there is any merit to that theory. Another theory was the night of the party, that there may have been a fight at the party that night. On top of the locals, there were kids from Bonner, there was people from Kansas City there. From what I have seen, it got kind of tense there. And people that was there have talked about drug use there. Weed in particular. And from what I'm hearing, the people from Linwood, when they were smoking weed there, they would share with the Kansas City people, the Bonner people, etc. But when Linwood was running low and the others were smoking their weed, they weren't sharing with the Linwood kids. And so some tension built. There's been theories that there has been some kind of fight at the party and Randy was killed at the party. People panicked, tried to cover it up. Again, I don't feel it can be ruled out, but you've got kids in the house there who are aware of what's going on. And if something like that happened, I believe the kids at the very least would have spoken about it. Again, I can't rule it out, but it is lower down on my list of theories. Another theory is Randy was beaten to death over a guy jealous rage, or by a guy with jealous rage over a girl. This one, again, I cannot rule out. I know Randy had dated one particular girl for quite some time. They had broken up. It appears that he had a thing for this other girl. This is the girl that comes up in this theory, and another guy may have had a thing for her as well. And there was a significant age difference there. And if the other guy asked her out and she said no, maybe he decided to take it out on Randy. This is a theory that can't be ruled out. You have the whole drug situation, which also falls into that theory of the jealous rage, at least with this girl. If Randy was dating or wanting to date Teresa, let's just say hypothetically that she was involved in the drugs. And let's say hypothetically she wanted out. Randy seems like the type of guy who is going to do what he can to help somebody like that. He's going to do what he can to help somebody who needs help. Could he have been killed for getting involved with that? That is a theory for me that is higher up on the list. Definitely cannot be ruled out. There's theories he may have seen or heard something that he should not have when it comes to drugs or some other dealings and was killed to silence him. Again, that cannot be ruled out. Another theory, and I want to correct myself, I said there was the one theory, Harold's involvement, that I would rule out for me personally. There's actually two. There's a theory that Randy up and left on his own accord and run away. I don't believe he did. Number one, everybody that knew Randy there called him, for lack of a better word, a townie. He really liked the area. It was home to him. He had no plans to leave the area. Number two, he's in his mom's car. Number one, he was afraid to drive the vehicle because he did not want to risk messing up Mama's car. He normally drove the truck. So driving that vehicle, number one, he's not going to take his mother's vehicle if that's his mindset. Number two, that vehicle would have turned up. Number three, we've all seen pictures of Randy. Randy's going to stand out. He's a big boy. He's going to stand out. Somebody would have seen him and reported him. So I do not believe that he left on his own accord or run away. And these theories, these theories have Randy where he could be anywhere, in a river, a pond, a creek, a cave, buried. And at this point, none of those can be ruled out, in my opinion. And going back to some of the satanic stuff, I saw where an informant told a detective from the Kansas City Police Department who specializes in cult crime that Randy had been sacrificed, cut up, put in burlap bags, and put in the Kansas River somewhere near Cedar Creek. At one point, after Randy's disappearance, 3 burlap bags of body parts were found in Cedar Creek. To date, it is unknown, publicly at least, who those remains belong to. I have not seen a single report that identifies those remains. So that cannot be ruled out. I find it too coincidental that it was reported he was sacrificed, cut up, put in burlap bags, and put in this area, and then down the road they actually find burlap bags of body parts there. So this is higher up on my list, and I have not been able to find where the remains were identified. If any of you have, please reach out to me on that, and we are still looking in to try to find that. And there's been other, I'm going to call them suspicious murders around the area not long after. Everett Bishop and Lloyd Folsom were killed, or they disappeared. Their bodies had never been found. There's people in jail right now for it. They claim that, they claim that, I believe it was Everett killed Lloyd, and then they killed Everett, put them in barrels, welded them shut, knocked holes in the barrel, threw them in the Missouri River, to the point to where one of them was even smiling in court when he talked about watching the barrels kind of bobble as they were going down the center of the river. I've had some of you reach out to me that you questioned that whole story. You felt that the whole barrel and river story was fabricated, and that they are actually buried on a property out in the area. Their testimony in court was, in my opinion, pleading guilty, saying what they done. But, it's words. The barrels were never found. Their bodies were never found. So, in my opinion, my thought process is I cannot say 100% certain that they were in barrels and put in the Missouri River. In my opinion, there is a possibility they're buried in the area somewhere. That has never been confirmed either way. Jack Schultz. Jack Schultz disappeared in 1994, I believe it was. I recently done a video on his case. Right here, yes, November 28th in 1994. And with Randy's case, there's one person I feel was, leading the events with Randy's disappearance, but had the help of several others. The person I feel was leading that actually happens to be the person that I'm hearing was the last person Jack Schultz was actually seen with. I look in between Randy's case and Jack's case. It will not surprise me if Randy and Jack are found in the same location, so to speak. You have Steve Dougherty. I talked about him the other day. Steve is the one that found the severed foot in the tennis shoe near the Kansas River. He reportedly was out for a stroll when he found that. He was reported to have been with Randy the day of the party. Some people say that he was not at the party that night. There's been a couple reports that he was, but the majority of reports that I have seen or heard was he was not at the party. He was older than the kids and would reportedly buy alcohol for them, stuff like that. He did reside in a room in the back of a store for a while, and at one point that area actually burnt. But Steve was found deceased in his driveway, I believe in DeSoto, Kansas. I'll have to check that again to confirm. But he was found in his driveway in the wintertime with no coat, no hat that he was known to always wear, broken glasses, and he had a big knot and laceration on his head. And the cause of death was determined to be an aneurysm. I shared the other day that researching on the aneurysm and talking with a medical professional, an aneurysm's not going to cause the big gash and the big knot. An aneurysm, a blood vessel bursts and the area around the brain fills up with blood. I did have somebody reach out and say, well, maybe the gash in the big knot came from him falling from having an aneurysm. That is a possibility, but it would depend on, how his body was positioned when he was found. I've been trying to find how his body was positioned to see if he could have hit his head, and I've been trying to find exactly where the knot and the gash was on his head. If it was around the front and sides, there's a possibility depending on how his body was positioned there. So that information is needed to be able to determine if that is the case or not, and I don't know if we're ever going to have that information. There were reports that Steve had been trying to find Randy himself. Then the obvious report that I'm sure all of us know was the day after the party when the Leaches were standing out in their driveway. Just realized Randy was missing. That Steve come driving by their house and turned down the road beside them. and was going at about 10 miles per hour and was looking around like he was actually looking to see if Randy had made it home. The speed limit on that road is and was 55 miles per hour, and he was going around 10 miles per hour. So that did raise some questions as well. My opinion, whether he was involved or not, was Steve knew what happened. He may not have known exactly where Randy's body was, but I believe he did know who was involved and possibly why and how. So these are some of the theories that we have going on in this case. Some of this come to us in the very beginning of us working on this case. Some of this is a little newer, and there will be some others we will be releasing in the near future. But if you have any theories on this case that your personal theories or theories that you may have seen or heard that we did not cover tonight, please reach out to me and let me know. My contact information is down in the descriptions. We're trying to look at every theory that's out there. And someone asked me the other day, why do you want to look at all these different theories? It couldn't have all happened. And you're right. Every single theory that you hear, it's not all going to be what happened. But there may be pieces in each of them that fit together to finally conclude what actually happened. So if you do have a theory, please get that out. I announced the other night we are gearing up for our next round of searches on Randy Leach's case. If you have any areas of interest you would like us to go out and search, please get that to us. We will put it on the list. Again, it comes down to getting property owner permission, but rest assured we will be talking to the property owners, trying to get permission to do those searches, and we will keep you updated on how that goes. So if you have any areas of interest or if you have any theories that we did not cover tonight, please reach out to me with those. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to Alberta. This poor lady, again, one of the sweetest people you'll meet. Many of you have seen her in her interviews with Adventures with Purpose and Profiling Evil. The image you have in your mind when you see her on there, hear her talking, that's Alberta. I mean, she's just a sweet person who has gone through so much. So our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to her, and she still has our commitment. We will be doing everything that we can to help her bring Randy home. So with that, you guys stay safe. We'll see you down the road.